Yo, what is up guys? It's the Goblin and welcome back to another Call of Duty Modern Warfare video. Now, obviously we had patch 1.07, which had a lot of weapon changes into this game. I'll go ahead and show the patch notes up on the screen right now. A lot of stuff was changed, and although it didn't completely shift the meta, a lot of the weapons that were still good before are still good after. It did sort of switch the ways you might want to interact with your weapons on a gunsmith of something like an M4, or on a gunsmith of other weapons like the submachine guns, just because those weapons you can build around those even with overkill, and because of the movement speed increase, they're a lot more usable as well. Another thing is with like the AK47, because of the fact that that weapon was not buffed, but all of the fully auto 5.56s were nerfed, that weapon is moving up in slots and definitely has a good spot. You know, it might take the spot of something like a Kilo or other weapons for a long range fight, although the Kilo is still absolutely ridiculous. If you're dealing with recoil, you know, if you hate recoil, Kilo would be your choice over the AK. If you like to get more damage at range, then you probably want to go with the AK. A lot of stuff to talk about in this video, and although most of these class ups are similar to what they were before the patch update, I go more in depth in breaking down what changed and how it affects the way you should interact with the interface in these class ups and your in-game experience. Hopefully you guys will enjoy this thing. Like I said, I think we go into like 5 setups, and then I show some other options. I think I show like 6 setups at the end with an overkill, or 7 setups. I mean, I talk about a lot of stuff in this video. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. We're at 986,000 subscribers on that road to 1 million. We're getting so close. Thank you to everyone who's subscribing to the channel. If you guys are new, everyone who's dropping likes on this thing, I know it only takes half a second. Smack that like button. Let's go ahead and go for 684 likes. That would be absolutely incredible. Subscribe if you guys are new, and let's go ahead and break down the top 5 class setups after patch 1.07. Enjoy. Alright, what is up guys? Let's go ahead and break down 5 of these awesome class setups, and then we'll probably add a 6th one at the end just to talk about that overpowered shotgun, the 725, which was nerfed. I guess you could say it definitely was nerfed, but it still is super duper strong, and more nerfs are even going to be coming to that weapon. So we'll talk about these 5 class setups and then show sort of the BS overkill class setup, which is still ridiculous in this game at the end. But these are some 5 awesome setups for 5 of the top weapons in this game. First one is the M4A1 Class setup. Now with the M4A1 Class setup, what was changed on this update 1.07? Basically, you want to rock with similar stuff as far as the perks. The only thing I would say as far as this stuff being affected is, of course, the Claymore did receive a nerf. So if you're talking about Claymores, you could mix this up, and I see a lot of people mixing up to the proximity mine, which has been doing very well for picking people off. But personally, I've found that Claymores still work out nice. The thing is, though, if there's a lot of people using EODs, they're not going to be very effective, but that's something that's going to happen with sort of any of this equipment. C4s are another one that tossing C4s and resupplying those can be a very effective strategy in this game. But personally, these lethals, I think they definitely are mixed up, and I need to do more testing on which is the best after this Claymore nerf. But as of right now, I've just been sticking with it because I really just haven't tested them all out yet. Tactical stim shot, nothing was changed with that through the updates. The only thing that was actually changed is the movement is faster now, so I'd say stim shot is even more required or more important to use on patch 107. Then when it comes to the perks, EOD kill chain battle hardened on this setup. EOD is amazing. It's just absolutely ridiculous now. You can run straight through claymores. You don't have to worry about grenades. I mean, it's very strong in this game, and it's definitely the perk one you'll see me using most of the time, unless you're mixing it up with either a rush happy setup where I might use a double time, or a overkill setup, of course, which overkill is really ridiculously strong in this game, based on the fact that with overkill, traditionally you could carry 2 weapons, right? But your weapons would have like a couple attachments on it. In this game, you get 5 attachments on each. So overkill means you have 10 attachments on 2 weapons, and of course then you don't really have to worry about your ammo as much either, because you have two weapons. So really, like, you know, something like Scavenger just is not really comparable to the state where overkill is in this game. Probably one of the most overpowered first perks, definitely these top 3. So as far as attachments that I go with the M4, because of this weapon being nerfed at its damage at range, as well as they said, you know, some other things, the handling and everything is still amazing on this weapon. I tend to make this class up to a little more mid-range. I designed the M4 around a super strength high damage area, which is mid-range, and I have the monolithic suppressor, which gives you sound suppression and damage at range. Now, a misconception people might think is that damage range is only for those long range fights, but range fall off starts to happen at mid-range, and that mid-range is not that far away for an AR, so I think that's really important. Then I set up with the Corvus Custom Marksman, of course, once again getting the, I mean, this is just the big 3: recoil control, bullet velocity, and damage range. And then I go with the stock with the Sin Guard arms for aim walking movement speed. You could even mix this up a little bit, and if you wanted to go go a little more rush happy because, like I said, this weapon is definitely less effective at range, but it still is one of the top weapons in this game. It's not even close. You can mix it up and go with the no stock as far as the update, sleight of hand, and then the stippled grip tape for aim down sight and sprint to fire speed. So as you can see around this weapon, I'm designing it more for getting up in their face and being more aggressive with it. If you even want to get rid of the suppressor, you could slap on this laser, which gives you 3 things that help to speed you up. And my tips for the M4 on this update is it still overpowered and super duper strong? Yes. The only times you'll really notice it being a bit weaker is when you can't really get those 2 taps across the map or anything like that. So focusing on keeping this mid-range engagements, it can still do great at long range, but expect it's going to take a few more shots to kill. At mid-range, you're going to absolutely melt people, and that's why I designed the setup around that. Next class setup here is one I just made a video for actually earlier today. You should 100% check out that video because I explained this setup in depth so much, and I really think this is a god gun setup. EOD Ghost tune-up, and then the PKM, which is absolutely amazing. I don't know why it shows level 1. Obviously, I see a lot of people comment about that too, like, hey, my weapon levels aren't leveling up. It's just a glitch. Like, I don't have this level 1. I've leveled this thing up to, I don't even know what level, but super high up. I think I have every attachment for it available. And what I like to run with this is, if you want to check out my video earlier, I covered it more in depth, but to go over it quickly, monolithic suppressor, which gives you damage range and sound suppression, heavy barrel, which gives you damage range and bullet velocity, and then an optic. So those 3 allow you to have basically a pretty awesome, strong LMG. And then with the next 2, I go with no stock, speeding myself up with movement speed and ADS speed, and the stippled grip tape, speeding myself up again. And that's why I call this the Hannah Montana class setup. It's the best of both worlds. You got your big damage here, you got your comfortability in aiming, and you got your absolute speed up, ability to wreck people with these last 2. Really, really strong setup that I use in this game. Next is the MP5. This weapon was buffed a ridiculous amount in the latest update because it wasn't specifically buffed, this weapon, but it was indirectly buffed because of the fact that they increased the movement speed across the board, which really helped SMG players. They then also increased what happened with the SMGs. I'll throw the notes up on the screen right here. As you can see, the increases with the SMGs overall, very, very important and makes them super strong. And then the other thing about this update is that they added that shoot house map 24/7, which of course that's a map that plays in very nicely to SMGs and to shotguns and other things like that. So what I rock with this setup, I mean, this setup has probably stayed the same for pretty much, I think, the whole game's life cycle. Monolithic integral suppressor for sound suppression and bullet velocity. Then you have the stock, which this is essentially the no stock, but on this one it's called the collapsible. Movement speed, ADS speed, sleight of hand, stippled grip tape, and then this is probably the most important part of the setup. The MP5 is the best SMG and one of the arguably the best gun in the game. It depends on what you're playing. If you're sticking to a shoot house sort of situation, something like the MP5 may be the best gun in the game. An MP5 and a shotgun overkill probably would be the best setup for that game or game mode or whatever it's called. But damage range, this is important because it gives up your fire rate and your aiming recoil control. But this thing barely has any recoil at all and increases your damage and increases your range. So that is super duper helpful, and obviously it allows it to surprisingly have almost the same time to kill up close, but even better time to kill at range. This setup is amazing. Double time as far as perk 1, your crouch movement speed. This is going to be even more helpful on the next patch update, when it's going to be 1.08 or whatever, when you're going to be having your crouch movement speed is already increased, but when your crouch movement speed is going to allow you to be a lot quieter when moving around the map. And then ghost and tune-up. Tune-up you'll see me use a lot. If I'm using an AR, you might see me slap on a tracker or a battle hardened. If I'm using an SMG though, sometimes on like an MP7 setup, I experience with tracker for like a ground war MP7 setup. I have a lot of fun with that. But if I'm trying to rush up in their face 6v6 or 10v10, like you would with this class setup, tune up so you can get your dead silence a lot quicker is the main way to go. Obviously I run it with ammo packs and then dead silence as well. Tune up is so important for getting that. Next we have the AK, and this is a weapon that really rose up. It was already one of the best guns in the game. Even before this update, Shroud said this was the best gun in the game, his favorite gun in the game. And after this update, it got improved because of the fact that everything else got nerfed. And this one, all the weapons that were using the 5.56 ammo, all those fully auto ARs, got a nerf. This one, the AK47, it uses 7.62, which is very, very important on the ammo that it uses with this weapon, right? So that means that this thing is still super duper strong, and that, when other weapons are brought down, this weapon did not get a buff, but when everything else that was good in the game got nerfed, except this thing, it sort of indirectly increases its spot on the tier list. So this is the setup. I've honestly been experimenting quite a bit with different setups like this. You can run with the monolithic suppressor, or you can take that off and rock with the stippled grip tape if you want a bit more of a faster paced setup. It depends what you want to look for. This setup right here that I've been rocking with is more of your slower paced, posting up and picking people off at a good damage range and a nice weapon. This thing does have a tad bit of recoil, but it's definitely, if you practice with it and the time to kill is so fast, it's fairly easy to control. Monolithic suppressor for sound suppression damage range. The barrel, which this is one of the major keys for this, the 23-inch Romanian barrel. Damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. Such big damage. Personally, I rock with a sight. And this is another thing on this weapon is if you want to mix, if I'm running on like a bigger map, I'm trying to post up on, let's say, an Arkalov Peak, I'll probably run with this. But if I want to mix it up and I want to be rush happy a little more, I would take off the sight and slap on the stippled grip tape. I honestly think this was a weapon that it's kind of underrated. It's weird to say because it's a really strong weapon, and a lot of people say it's the best gun in the game, but there's a lot of people that kind of ignore this weapon because of how slow it feels and don't really use it to its strengths, right? And one of that strengths would be the fact that the skeleton stock is an available attachment on this weapon, which the skeleton stock is an attachment that is not available on a lot of weapons in this game. And the reasoning behind it is because if this was available on every weapon, everyone would just use it every time. Kind of like how if you're a Black Ops 4 fan, hybrid mags. Hybrid mags is absolutely ridiculous, but it wasn't available across all the weapons. It was on like an MX9, it was on like your KN, stuff like that, right? If it was across everything, everyone would just use it on everything, right? So skeleton stock here, giving yourself aim walking movement speed, which is your strafing speed, which is so important on a AR, especially a slower based one like this, and then movement speed and 80. I mean, look at this. This is the triple, much like I talked about the PKM class setup being the best of both worlds. You can kind of make this one the best of both worlds also. Really two strong weapons, this and the PKM, that play a nice post-up sort of style with it. Like I said, you go with the stippled grip tape, or you can mix this up and go with the rubberized grip tape if you're having trouble with the recoil. This is something that I will do occasionally, go with the rubberized grip tape, or you can just go ahead and swap that out and go with an optic. There's a lot of different options here. Obviously, there's honestly just a lot of different options, and the cool thing about this game is you can mix up your setups when you're in the game. You could start off your game like this. Start off your game and you're rocking with, let's say, a mini reflex, no grip tape, and you're like, oh my gosh, man, I'm dying because I'm getting caught in a sprint every time. And you can just go ahead and swap this out. Go ahead right here. Swap on the stippled grip tape, and you could, even if you want to go double up into that, take off the monolithic suppressor, slap on something like a tac laser or this laser, although the 5MW laser, which gives you nice sprint out fire speed, does make it so the laser is visible when you have the gun up on your hip. But you see what I mean. You can customize this setup based on what you're building around, but personally the setup that I think works probably the best would be a setup like this, maybe, where you're taking it and using this AR for a long range what its strengths are, and you basically make the decision: do I want to have recoil control, do I want to have speed, or do I want to have the nice looking red dot? I mean, you can run the Viper, you can run the GI. There's a bunch of different ways that you could run with a scope on this thing, but Cronin has just been my favorite. Then with the perks with this setup as well, I'm talking about this setup a lot because this is one that really is great for holding down power positions. EOD restock, battle hardened, flak jacket restock, tac mask, same thing, super duper strong. And then once again with the lethal claymores, if you have trouble with claymores, you find that they're a bit too weak, then C4s, tossing those and picking people off can be amazing, or even mixing it up to the proximity mine, which is basically like a bouncing Betty, I guess you could say. That's the easiest way that I describe it. Next setup here is an MP7 setup, and this one is just to mix it up a little bit with the perks. Like I said, usually I'll run with tune-up if I'm trying to rush in their face with dead silence. There's a little bit of a mix-up one where maybe you're playing in ground war where the footsteps, people can't hear you as loud because there's so much noise, so much stuff going down. So tracker, high alert, which I love high alert. I think it's amazing. I think it's absolutely incredible, but I also think kill chain and ghost are incredible, and restock. The second perk slot is so competitive that you really want to sort of just experiment around and mix it up. And then when it comes down to the first perk slot, I mean, your decision making here is either double time or EOD, depending on, do I want to not deal with explosives, or do I want to get a little more rush happy, not worry about sprinting across super large areas because I don't have to worry about being slowed down, and also having the increased crouch movement speed. Now, as far as other setups in this game, let's go ahead and actually make a setup that, because the shotgun is so ridiculous, if you actually are tryharding in this game, it probably does make sense to go with overkill shotgun. It is kind of a douchey way to play, I guess you could say, but it is kind of one of the strongest ways to play. So let's say I go with something like this, you know, a tune-up. So tune-up can work great with the shotgun, ghost, overkill, and then I mix it up with keeping my M4 in the primary slot, or you could change that up, and then the secondary slot going with the 725, which is still a super duper strong shotgun in this game. And the big choice with this is, do you want to go with the slug rounds, which helps you for a lot more of getting longer kills with the damage range. You do have to give up some of that damage radius. Number one thing you need if you're dealing with the shotgun is, of course, you need to go with the sleight of hand. I also like to go with the sawed-off stock. Movement speed and ADS speed obviously makes sense why you'd want to rock that. Next thing is you can go with the laser sight for the hip fire accuracy and the sprint out fire speed. I think this is kind of important, although hip fire, because this weapon was nerfed, hip firing is really trash with it. You want to be aiming down sights with this thing. So maybe you could even just honestly swap out and go with this instead of, if you know, it just depends though. It depends if you're confident where you're never going to have to need a hip fire, but that's not really how it works. Even though ideally you never want to hip fire, you always want to aim down sights. Sometimes they're still going to catch you off guard, so it's probably best to go with that. Barrel, you're going to want to go with the last barrel, the damage range, and the tighter pellet spread or whatever it's called. But yeah, this is a very, very good setup that you could rock with as far as this thing goes. And then when it comes down to using your last one, basically you probably could either mix it up by going with the Forge Tack Steady Grip if you're trying to get your gun up a lot quicker in front of people, or take it off and go with the slug rounds. Another way to go with slug rounds would be to take off the laser and slug round it up. It just really depends what you're trying to do with this weapon. The main thing is, either way, with slug rounds or without, this thing is still overpowered. It just depends how much range you want to get on this thing and what you want to give up in terms of other hit markers or your damage radius, which is going to affect your hit markers. Really does depend, but a setup like this works so damn well with the shotgun. And yeah, overkill setups like this, like M4 overkill with the 725, or the MP5 overkill with the 725, or the PKM overkill with the 725, it is kind of broken in this game. And hey, it's not my fault that it's broken. I didn't code the game. I didn't make the game. In my opinion, I think they either need to nerf overkill. I think they need to affect it somehow, because having overkill where you can get 5 attachments on each is super duper strong. And all those other class ups where I showed you using EOD are probably better if you're posting up, because people are going to try to nade you out heavily in this game, especially with restock and the nades. But if you're moving around and you're trying to mix two playstyles together, definitely a overkill setup will be super duper deadly. So I know we've talked about a lot of different setups in this game, but those are some ones that I think can really help you guys out, as well as the Kilo. There's a lot of other weapons in this game. You know, just because these are the best class ups I'm giving you, it doesn't mean that you can take this setup, double time ghost and tune up, really good SMG setup, and then swap out your MP5 for a P90, swap it out for an Uzi. You can take the M4 setup, swap it out for a Kilo. Obviously the Kilo is going to be a bit better at longer ranges. The M4 is going to be a bit better at those mid ranges. It all just depends. This patch update did change things. I don't think it really changed the meta, but it changed how you interact with the weapons that we are already using. You know, all these weapons, these were all really good weapons beforehand, before this update. I mean, obviously the the SMGs probably got a really big buff in this update, and then the AK47 got a indirect buff because of everything else being nerfed. But the PKM and the M4, and the shotgun, those were nerfed, but they're still ridiculous and super duper strong. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Hopefully these setups will help you guys out. Like I said, you know, I'm still experimenting with these setups. I'm still testing different things out, but these are 5 of the ones that I've been playing with quite a bit lately, and that I think that judging on your play style, you know, like I said, talking about if you're a 24/7 player, MP5 shotgun stuff will be amazing. If you're more of a post-up player, something like this PKM setup, or, you know, if you want to post up and have resupply claymores, this AK47 setup, mix up that lethal to claymores to proximities to whatever you want to run, can be absolutely ridiculous. There's a lot of stuff you can run in this game. Anyway, thanks for watching. Drop a like, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one, and that's about it. I'm out. Peace.